Hey everyone, welcome back to Kubrick Corner with me, Sean Wilson. So one of the curious things about reviewing movies is tackling the spectre, if you will, of an actor who has a preconceived public image, and this is very much in the consciousness at the moment with the release of Spencer, the biopic of the sort of biographical drama of the late Princess Diana, who is played by Kristen Stewart. And what you have in this film, which is directed by the brilliant filmmaker Pablo Larraín, is an interesting kind of cross fusion of the legacy of Diana and kind of the crude public perception of Kristen Stewart, because both figures, uh, Princess Diana was very, very prominently in the public eye as the people's princess. Her personal life was picked over by the tabloid press. You know, she was put under a huge amount of scrutiny. And interestingly, Kristen Stewart is an actor who at a very young age got a huge amount of exposure for playing Bella Swan in the Twilight series. She largely became defined by that. But I will say that, and I think this is pivotal to the success of Spencer as a film, is that Kristen Stewart is someone who I've banged the drum for a very, very long time. She is actually a really, really good actress. She's done very interesting performances in films like Certain Women, Clouds of Sils Maria, The Runaways. She's really, really great personal shopper as well. So, and I think the idea of getting Kristen Stewart as a performer who has been subject to quite aggressive and invasive media scrutiny to play the former People's Princess Diana Spencer, that is an interesting kind of cross fusion. It reminded me to some extent of what David Finch has said about Ben Affleck in Gone Girl, which is what in Gone Girl, Ben Affleck plays a man who is kind of in full view of the media, is basically accused of killing his wife. And David Finch said, well, Ben Affleck understands that media whirlwind because he went through that through his relationship with Jennifer Lopez. So I mean, hopefully that's not drawing too flippant a comparison, but I think the principle still stands. And in Spencer, what you have is a very, very compressed time frame. So over the course of 3 days, Sandringham Palace in Christmas 1991. Diana Spencer, as I've said, played by Kristen Stewart, is late on her arrival to Sandringham. The royal retinue has turned up. Diana has broken protocol by arriving late. She has to stop in a diner to actually ask where Sandringham Palace is, despite the fact that as a child she lived not too far away in a house that's boarded up. That actually becomes quite an important visual motif as the film goes on, the idea of this boarded up house that contains so many special memories for her. But so at the beginning of the movie, what Pablo Larraín and screenwriter Stephen Knight, who worked on Locke and created Peaky Blinders, do is they set up Diana as this sort of disempowered, disenfranchised character who is like an outlier in the royal family, who is perceived as willful and troublesome by the royal household. And this is kind of an effective way at the beginning of the movie of leading us into this, what is effectively a claustrophobic psychological horror movie about someone who realizes that her marriage to Prince Charles, played quite rather well by Jack Farthing, is falling apart in full view of the British media circus. She's told by the equerry, played by Timothy Spall, that she absolutely must not dress or undress with her blinds open because there are tabloid press with long lenses prowling around the grounds. There is a very, very uncomfortable, brilliantly uncomfortable dinner sequence in which the use of very close quarters camera angles and close-ups and Johnny Greenwood's brilliantly insistent score to create a sense of incredible psychological unease that is further compounded by the focus on Diana's personal issues, which were raked over by the British muckraking press, her issues with bulimia, her issues with self-harming. This is brought up, and all of this is kind of put under the spotlight, and she basically cannot. She's told by Prince Charles that there needs to be two of us. You know, there needs to be the private side away from the press, but the most important version of ourselves that we can project is the version that we project to the press, and we've all got our royal responsibilities to maintain that. And effectively what you get is this sense of disorientation and alienation over the course of a 3 day Christmas period at Sandringham in 1991 that you know in real life proved to be rather pivotal to Diana's future and indeed to the all of the royal family. And albeit, you know, with a certain amount of contrivance and dramatic license. And I think that as the film goes on, it becomes more contrived and more labored. In the final act, there are things that happen where you kind of think, okay, clearly that would not have been allowed to happen in real life, but for the purposes of dramatizing it within the narrative, Lorraine and Knight just about get away with it. But the reason why it works is because of Kristen Stewart. She is like the linchpin of the whole thing. Even when the narrative threatens to become a bit raggedy and a bit digressive, as I think it does, she is able to bring sort of that almost subconscious awareness of what it means to be in a very, very aggressive tabloid spotlight. And she also assimilates Diana's mannerisms brilliantly. The upturned chin, sort of the head half cocked. She is really good as this character, and she's able to get under the skin of someone who was effectively ostracized from the royal household despite living under the same roof. And Kristen Stewart is brilliant. I think she is definitely going to be a lock for an Oscar nomination come January, February 2022. I forget when they're announcing the Oscars next year. I think it's the start of February, but I might be mistaken about that. And Kristen Stewart, I think with this movie, she can finally leave Twilight behind. I mean, I think she's already done that already. But again, in the eyes of a lot of mainstream audiences, Kristen Stewart is still Bella Swan. I think she left that behind ages ago, but lots of people will disagree with me on that. Hopefully this movie will change their mind. Clearly, the other key auteur in this is Pablo Larraín himself. Very, very interesting Chilean director, probably best known to Western audiences for directing Jackie, which was the similarly ghostly, melancholy story of Jackie Kennedy's life after the assassination of her husband, John F. Kennedy. That movie was similarly affected and weird and kind of spectral. And Natalie Portman did put on a very good performance that was kind of affected and theatrical, because again, that movie was about projected personalities. It was about personalities being presented for the media. Spencer is about that as well. So if Kristen Stewart's performance does seem kind of somewhat stagey and theatrical, it's done with a purpose. This is the point. This is the thesis of the movie. It's about how do we present an image to the media to maintain the status quo. And I also think the film does actually a good job of being relatively nuanced in terms of how it depicts the royals, who are largely a silent presence. I mean, Stella Gunnay plays Queen Elizabeth II, is this very kind of stony, forbidding edifice. She only really gets about 2 or 3 lines of dialogue. Likewise, Prince Charles gets that pivotal moment where he tells Diana around the snooker table, look, we have to project 2 personalities, but otherwise he's largely kind of in the background, like hovering off screen. It is really about Kristen Stewart's performance as Diana, but it doesn't demonize the royals, because I think what it basically says is they are emblems. They are emblems of a system, and as royal emblems, they have a responsibility to subsume their personalities. This is kind of what they have been born into. This is their lineage, and Diana kind of willfully and impulsively does not want to fall into that. That is not what she wants for her or for her children, William and Harry. And that brings me on to what I think is the final thing. And I know, this is any subject matter dealing with Diana is inherently very, very contentious. It's very raw. It influenced both William and Harry's relationship with the frankly disgusting British tabloid press. Harry in particular always struggled with this and continues to struggle with it, as far as I'm aware. But basically, the movie's real note of dignity lies in how it depicts the relationship between Diana and her sons. There's one bit towards the end involving a use of euphoric pop music that's kind of like throwing off the shackles, and it really does zero in on the fact that Diana worshipped those boys, and I like the way it does have the sincerity underpinning the psychological horror of the rest of the situation. As I said, Pablo Larraín is a very, very interesting director. He's directed, lots of dark, angular films like Tony Manero and No in his native Chile. And he does very, very good kind of discombobulating movies about alienated personalities. That's what he seems to specialize in. He's a very fantastic director, one of the best working in the industry at the moment. Johnny Greenwood's score is amazing, and it really is the inner monologue of Kristen Stewart's Diana. It moves from these like dysrhythmic jazz passages to these very tranquil sort of piano motifs, to this very discordant angular string work that's kind of reminiscent of, you maybe think of like the Bartok or the Penderecki material from The Shining. Brilliant score, does a lot of the storytelling on its own terms, even when characters aren't speaking. I think to watch Johnny Greenwood's evolution as a composer, from going from Radiohead through There Will Be Blood and the rest of his collaborations with Paul Thomas Anderson, Phantom Thread is a favorite of mine, to this is really exciting. And I really can't wait to see what Johnny Greenwood is going to do on Anderson's next movie, Licorice Pizza. Greenwood has composed the score for that. I think on an aesthetic level, the movie is impeccable because you would expect it to be. It's dealing with, you know, the inner workings of the British royal family. The production design, the costume design, and cinematography is all top notch. You know, there's an excellent supporting cast. I mean, Sally Hawkins and Sean Harris are very sympathetic supporting players and really good. I mean, Sean Harrison is somewhat atypically sympathetic role. He doesn't play very many roles like this. But ultimately, it is about Kristen Stewart. This is her role and this is her time in the spotlight. It's a formidable challenge that she's been set with this film, and she lives up to it. And, you know, I think anyone who has been remotely sniffy about Kristen Stewart in the past, go and see her in this, because I think she will take you by surprise. And then go back and check out something like Clouds of Sils Maria, if one is of a mind to engage with kind of strange art house fare like that, because Kristen Stewart is really good in it. But for now, the movie is called Spencer. It's on release now in the UK. If you've already seen it, drop me a comment here at Kubrick Corner, and I will see you soon. And please don't forget to subscribe. Bye.